So we started a mimer talking about Yitzchok, the relationship between Yitzchok and Esav, which seems to be a troubling kind of relationship as it's related in the Torah. It seems that Yitzchok really liked Esav. It says clearly that Yitzchok loved Esav because he put hunt in his mouth, and
Rivka loved Yaakov.
We see also that he used to ask him questions like, how do you take Meiser from the straw? How do you take Meiser from the salt? How to tithe it properly. And so all of these things would, the way our sages put this forth is that Esav was trying to pull the wool over Yitzchak's eyes. And on the other hand, when Yaakov came in to get the bracha and Yitzchak felt his hands, he said, well, that's strange because Hakol Kol Yaakov, you sound like the sound of Yaakov. And as our sages say, for the name of God is always in your mouth. Because when I asked why you've come so quickly, well, God has helped me come quickly. Esav would never be talking about God. So he knew that Esav was, shall we say, godless. So what was the special preferential treatment or the special love that Yitzchak had for Esav? And basically, to explain this, the Alter Rebbe launches into a somewhat of a Kabbalistic description. What the Zohar refers to the susvisa the dahava. You have the dross that is found in the gold. When you're refining gold, there's some negative elements, and this is the idea that Yitzchak represented the level of gevura, of might, but yet might has a negative side to it, and that became expressed through Esav. Esav became the negative of Yitzchak's gevura, and gold is the idea of gevura. Silver is compared to is symbolic for chesed, for divine love of Hashem. And the dross, the dregs that are found in the gold, this is the level of Esav. And then the Rebbe goes to explain it on a Kabbalistic level, that you have a system of holiness. The system of holiness is the system of the 10 spheros. And the idea of the 10 spheros is that you have exactly 10. And in the 10, everything becomes absorbed properly. Everything is in its place. But when you have something that is beyond 10, or something, when you have 11 things trying to fit into the space of 10, so what is out of place? Everything, right? Everything is moved out of place. And so the Kabbalah in the Sefer Yetzirah, it says that the 10 sphirot are 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11. There's this idea of 10 being the concept of total integration, the way that something becomes drawn and transferred in a complete and total way, becomes internalized in the recipient. Whereas when you have the idea of 11, well, now you have, well, you say, well, 11, if 10 is good, is 11 not better? No, because now once you have 11, you now have a disintegration. You no longer have the integration of the holiness. And this is the level of klipa as represented by 11. And to contend with this, we have the 11 spices of the ketoras, of the incense offering, which was specifically 11. The idea of 11 was meant to sanctify and bring holiness even in the level of the klipa. So the klipa, that which stands against Hashem, is represented by this idea, this concept of 11.
And not Chelbana, the 11.
Well, here, interestingly, so you're right. So Chelbana is usually The galbanim is usually what's described as the 11th one. It's the one that doesn't have a good fragrance and it has to be included. But here the Alter Rebbe says that Levona is the 11th, which transcends. There's actually an 11th, which is a sense of a transcendent spice. And that transcendent spice is what allows holiness to vitalize even negativity. But it's vitalizing it in a way where it's coming from above, but not being incorporated, not being internalized in the level of the negative. And so if you think about an entitled person could be receiving a lot of different things, but whatever he's receiving, he's not internalizing it. He'll never say thank you because he doesn't see himself as a recipient. So he's getting it, but he's not receiving it. Very big difference between getting something and receiving. When you receive something, you're internalizing it. You realize that someone gave you something, right? It's a big difference between getting, taking, and receiving. Receiving, that's a very big thing. In fact, in Hebrew, you call it Kabbalah, right? That's the art of Kabbalah is the idea of creating a system where the divine light can be received. Esav did not receive it. He got it, but he didn't receive it, you see. And so thus it was not internalized. Let's go back into the mimer. We're going to jump back into the mimer. And I'm not sure where we had a few more students before, and it's too bad that I restarted because I couldn't figure out the sound system. But what are we going to do? Nothing much. Gotta go. We'll continue on with what we have. Okay. Let me just see if I can send them an email.
We'll try, Rebbe. We'll try.
No, I'm not finding their email. Okay, I'll just go forward. All right. I mean, the Fuchses came back, Yisrael and Yehudis, and Bruce was here. Anyway, we shall continue on. And so the Alter Rebbe continues that this is the idea of the Levona, the frankincense, which is the 11th of the spices of the Ketores, which represents the makif, the encompassing light, which encompasses them from above and does not become absorbed inside of them. That is how it is still connected to the source of life and can continue to enliven them, right? So it gives them life, but they're receiving life, but they're not receiving it. They're not internalizing it. They're not getting the blessing. They're just getting life. And since this makif encompassing light encompasses them from above their perception,
Not even that. Then it's all around them and it's available to them, but they have to reach out and take it.
well, they're getting
the glow of it from the outside. It's there.
they're getting the energy automatically
Right.
because it's coming from above. In other words, it's something coming from above, but not in a good way, right? Sometimes you could talk about something coming from above in a good way. We're receiving a divine blessing from above. The point is, this is coming from above and beyond their ability to internalize. So it encompasses them from above their perception, and they are not aware of it. And the life force that comes into them becomes absorbed and trapped into their being. Therefore, they become arrogant and pick up their egos brazenly. In other words, they can receive this light and they can be very successful. They can become, multi-gazillionaires. And then once you become a multi-gazillionaire, how could you help from not becoming totally
Oh,
filled with the ego? it's very hard. It's a very hard test, a very hard challenge. I wish that Hashem would challenge me with becoming so wealthy that it's going to be hard to remain humble. But
Be careful.
I would love that challenge.
Be careful. David HaMelech learned. Don't challenge.
Well, we don't ask for for a nisayon, but this it says Hashem says we can say b'chanuni na b'zayis. We can test Hashem that we're going to give tzedakah. But in any case, not getting far. We don't want to get far afield here. The point is that so when you receive something and you realize that you're getting something from above and beyond, like wisdom, for example, right? And Hashem is shared with you, and you have the mind and you have the blessing to be able to, for instance, study Hasidic philosophy. Are you ever going to go and use it to somebody and say, oh, that person doesn't know and I'm better than that person? No, because you're going to realize that what you have is such a gift from Hashem. It's not because of your own. It's not from your own, right? So when you receive it, you're going to receive it and you're going to have humility because you've internalized it and realizing that this was truly a gift that Hashem has blessed you with. And what about somebody who doesn't get it, who doesn't know it, who doesn't receive it? You feel sorry for them. That's all. But never, God forbid, judgmental, and certainly not to hold yourself better than them, that I have this and you don't have it, right? You see, it's a whole different way it's a whole different interaction. It's a whole different exchange of energy. When you receive it and internalize it, you realize that it's a gift. You're filled with gratitude. When you're filled with gratitude for what you have, it's not going to make you arrogant. On the contrary. And like the Alter Rebbe writes in Igeres HaKodesh, Epistle 2, after he was freed from jail, he was put into jail by groups of Jewish people who wanted to quash the Hasidic movement, and they framed him. And it was a horrible sentence. He was going for the death. They were going for the death penalty to eliminate the Alter Rebbe. And when he was freed, what's the normal human reaction? Well, let's take revenge. Let's serve up to them what they tried serving up to us. The Alter Rebbe said, "Lo," with an aleph. The Alter Rebbe taught this epistle 2 in the Igeres HaKodesh, where he goes into the idea. It says, if you receive a great gift from Hashem, a great salvation from Hashem, you have to feel more humble. How could I have received this great gift from Hashem? Wow, that has to humble you. And this is what Yaakov Avinu said, Katonti mikol hachasadim umikol ha'emes. I've become small from all of the chesed, from all of the kindness, and from all of the truth of Hashem. I've become smaller, meaning I've become more humble from all of this. What's the opposite reaction? The opposite reaction is the normal human reaction. When you're getting and getting and getting, it blows you up. It blows up your ego more and more. And that was Esav. You see, Esav wasn't receiving, he was getting. And this is what the Alter Rebbe is describing here, this process of the energy coming from above, right? But not being absorbed within. And this is, he's calling this the Levona aspect of the 11 spices. So there were 11 spices in the Ketorah. So just to review for those who may have missed it. Not sure if anybody else is trying to get in here. Let me just. So you have 11. The idea of 11 represents this level of klipa, of that which stands against the light of Hashem. Why? Because 10 is the idea of perfect integration. Right? 10 is the expansion of one, of unity. And when it becomes all absorbed properly, so the expansion of 10 becomes all incorporated within the one. 11 is what we call the fifth wheel. Right? What is the idea of a fifth wheel? Something that's extra, right? And what it causes is that nothing can be absorbed properly. Nothing can be received properly. And that's the idea of the number 11. 11 Kabbalistically represents the side of Klipa. But you'll see it coming up in holiness because it's the way that holiness endeavors to contend with the negative and endeavors to elevate the negative and ultimately to transform the negative. That's why we see that whatever, we're not going to get into other areas, but this is what is the 11th spice, which is the makif, which is the encompassing level that gives from above but doesn't become absorbed below. That is the lavona. That's the frankincense.
Rabbi, isn't it the case that some of the spices, or at least one of the spices, is definitely not fragrant and differs from?
Right. So this is another idea brought out by our sages, that the chelbina, the galbanim, was malodorous, and the point is that this is teaching us that we have to include even the prayers of the not yet righteous in our prayers, right? And to include all of the Jewish people, right? Not to exclude somebody because they're not a level of a tzaddik. That takes us off in a little bit of a different direction. Not here, the Alter Rebbe is talking about the Lavona, which apparently has a different component, which is actually the highest level. So this aspect of the Lavona is what connects the 10 spheres of holiness to
universal.
be able to join into the 10 spheres of unholiness. But they're shining in, but not becoming absorbed. And that's what I want to, the Alter Rebbe is setting up a whole paradigm here of how light comes forth for the negative. Is negativity vitalized by holiness, by God? Of course. Anything that exists has to be vitalized by God. If it's not vitalized by God, it's not vitalized by anything. And thus it doesn't exist. But what Chassidus explains, the Kabbalah explains, is that what happens is that vitality goes into it and it becomes into a state of exile. It's there, but it can't impact the negative, and it can't, and the holiness cannot be expressed. And what becomes expressed is unholiness. You see. So it doesn't mean that it has no holiness. What we mean when we say that something is unholy is that the holiness within it is in a state of exile. It is imprisoned. As we're going to see soon, that this is the idea, this is our work, is to release, when we say that we are to release the hostages, when we're released, to release those that are in exile, that is our whole process of working with physicality to utilize it for godliness, to release the hostages, that the holiness inside of it should become restored to its source above. But over here, the level of Esav, and this is what the Alter Rebbe is focusing on over here, is the way that the godliness shines into it, but does not become absorbed. In other words, it doesn't become integrated. It doesn't become internalized. And so this is the mashal, I used the mashal last week of the teenage child. Is the teenage child getting fed by his parents? Yes. Is he getting housed by his parents? Yes. Is he anything is he getting from his parents? Yes. Maybe even loved by his parents. But does he love his parents back? This group of teenagers, no, absolutely not, because whatever they're getting, they feel entitled to, and they don't receive it. That's what I was saying earlier. They're not receiving it, they're getting it. You see, that's the difference. When you're receiving, according to the Kabbalistic understanding, receiving means you're absorbing and realizing you're getting a blessing from somebody else, right?
You're drawing it in.
You're
You're
drawing it
doing
in.
something. You're doing something with it. Just sitting there and listening doesn't do it.
And so when you receive something, what's your response? Your response is gratitude. But when you get something, your response is entitlement. You see, that's a little bit of what the Alter Rebbe is explaining over here, that they're getting the holy light in order that they can exist. And this is coming from the level of the Levona. So the point is, the Levona is actually a very high level. And this is the idea of the head of Esav. It refers to the makif, the encompassing light that shines into them from above. Which is still connected to the chest of Yitzchok, meaning it is actually still connected to holiness. So the way that this makif light is, this encompassing light is in its source, it's holiness, you see. But the way that it comes down into Esav, into Esav's actions, it's no longer holy. But on the level of the head of Esav, Kabbalistically, the head of Esav is at the chest of Yitzchok. Now, when we talk about the head of Esav being in the chest of Yitzchok, we spoke last week that there was a whole bizarre story with the burial of Yaakov, how one of the sons of Yaakov ended up executing Esav, chopping off his head. His head went rolling and it became buried and it rolled right into the grave of Yitzchok. And so our sages tell us that the head of Esav is at the chest of Yitzchok. But Kabbalistically, that has a meaning. Basically, what the meaning is that Esav in his source, the level of the head at his source, which is this high spiritual level of the Levona, of the frankincense, that has a connection to Yitzchak, and Yitzchak was trying to tap into that. The whole question of the Mimer was, what was Yitzchak's fascination with Esav? Why did he love him? Why did he want to give him the blessings? Because he had this very high, lofty level. And Yitzchak was hoping that he could tap into it and draw it into holiness. But it was an idea whose time had not yet come, as we'll see. Therefore, at the encompassing level of Esav, it is possible for him to ask, how do we tithe the straw, even though on an internal level, the name of heaven is not found frequently in his mouth? This answers our original question. And I'm going to just bring everyone up to speed. Not everybody was here last week, but not everybody was here at the beginning of the class. So, was Esav, we're doing Esav. Well, great to see everybody here. Welcome, everyone who's made it onto the class. Baruch Hashem. We're kind of right in the middle of the Mimer. I'll give a little bit of review for everybody, which will be so everyone will also come up to speed. So here's my question. Was Esav, do you think Esav was lovable or Esav was unlovable?
To whom?
A face only a mother could love, but his mother didn't love him. His father did, right? In the story of Esav, Yitzchak, the Torah says, Yitzchak loved Esav. Okay?
And there was nobody that did kibbud of like Esav to Yitzchok.
So our question is to understand the mystical dimension behind the relationship between Yitzchak and Esav. That's really the focus of the Mimer. Okay? And why was, Yitzchak, was Yitzchak ignorant of how Esav conducted himself? No, he knew that he didn't talk about God. He knew that God's name was not on his mouth. He knew that he would never say, Baruch Hashem, thank God, or God has helped me. He knew this, but nevertheless, this is drawing from many of our midrashic sources about Esav and Yitzchok, that Esav would ask good questions in Jewish law, like how do you tithe certain things? And what the Rebbe is saying is that all of these good things, these so to speak good things, were coming because Esav was rooted in this high level of the encompassing light. Now, let me tell you something about encompassing light. It sounds very nice, right? Encompassing light. It surrounds you. And in Kabbalah, when you talk about something which is encompassing, it could be a very high level, and this is a high level. But there could be a problem with something that is encompassing. And what is the problem with something that is what could be the problem with something that is encompassing and transcendent? It's not internalized. You see, that's the problem. It's not internalized. Now, possibly it could be, right? I'm not saying that it's beyond being internalized, but you can go to a class, you could come from this class, and you very may well come from this class and tell your friends that the class was so transcendent. Is that a compliment or an insult? Yes, right? It was so transcendent. Wow, it was amazing. It was so beyond. So what did he say? I have no idea. Right? Because it's hard to internalize it, you see. So when you have this high level of Esav, the problem with it is drawing it into our reality, this high levels. And this is, by the way, what Yitzchok was hoping to do. This was Yitzchok's life work. He was a man who embodied the sphira, the spiritual level of gevura, of severity. And Yitzchok was going to be his protege. Wow, look at this person of gevura, and we're going to take, and it's coming, he's drawing this very high level light, and we're going to draw it into proper vessels. What do we mean internalize, right? So let me give you an example on the same theme, because some of these things are very Kabbalistic words, but all of these have to do with very practical applications in life. Let's say you learn an idea about godliness and it blows your mind, right? Wow, this is so beautiful. This is so amazing. But then that idea gives you a sense of arrogance, that you feel better than others. I know this Kabbalistic idea. I know about the Or Ein Sof, right? The infinite life. You've never heard of the Or Ein Sof, really? Right? You use the concepts of high levels of godliness, which should bring you to a state of nullification and humility. And instead, what they're doing is they're making you a Kabbalistic, arrogant person. Kabbalistic arrogance. I'm just saying, you understand what that means is that there was this revelation of a very high level. You may have heard the ideas, but you didn't internalize it. It didn't become part of you. This is, or you heard about this idea of bittul, of nullifying yourself, and you're telling somebody else, you need to have more bittul. Oh, really? If you're telling somebody that they need to have more bittul, guess who needs to have more bittul, right? So bittul is an idea to apply this self-nullification itself. It's nullifying yourself. There can be all different kinds of distortions and misuses when these lofty ideas are not absorbed and internalized properly. And that's what we're talking about over here. You can have a high level of light, but they're distorted the way they come down below. Yisrael or Yehudis, you have a question?
Yes, Rabbi. So it would seem that Yitzchok failed in terms of his imbuing Esau with Torah and connectivity to Hashem. But and maybe you could say the same thing about Abraham and Yishmael.
Right. Except we don't see the relationship of Abraham endeavoring to transform or give Yishmael the blessing. It says that Abraham gave everything that he had to Yitzchok. So Abraham understood that Yitzchok, and God told Abraham, Ki Yitzchak yikare lecha zara, that your progeny is going to be called by Yitzchak, not by Yishmael. You see, so Abraham had greater, shall we say, clarity on that issue. Although he wanted Yishmael to live and to do tshuva, right? But it was coming from a different bent. You see, here's another big difference. Okay, was Esav
Shmuel
Jewish?
was a Ben Hagar, right? I was just going to say, Shmuel Ben Hagar.
Was Esav Jewish?
Completely.
His father was Jewish and his mother was Jewish. If Yaakov was Jewish, right? If he had to go to Israel and bring a certificate of showing you that he's Jewish, says, here's Yaakov, right? You call yourselves Bnei Yisrael. Well, that's my twin brother, right? So it's a whole different dynamic, right? It's a whole different thing going on here between Avram and Yishmael and Yitzchak and Esav. Now, when you say Yitzchak failed, I don't see it. I wouldn't call it a failure. I would say it was a hope, and he was hoping for something. Do you know when it's ultimately going to be fulfilled? It will be ultimately fulfilled when Mashiach comes. We're going to
Yemaisa Mashiach. Also, how can you judge and say he failed? What kind of para Adam would Asa be if he had not been in Yitzchok's house? They organized a religion. They follow a religion that accepts some version of Hashem. He did just fine with Esav.
I don't know, because Esav did have a grandson, and you know what?
Amalek.
You know what great thing we can say about Esav? He was nothing close to how horrible his grandson Amalek was. So I want to just keep focused on the thing over here. So we're talking about, so Yitzchak was, let me put it in kind of different words, Yitzchak had a messianic dream. Had he been able to convert, shall we say, transform, better word, Esav, then that would have been Mashiach.
Soon, right.
What do we say in the end? In the end, what we say is, and va'alu Moshim b'Har Tzion, and the Moshiim, the saviors, will go up on Har Tzion. Lishpod es Har Esav, they're going to judge the mountain of Esav. V'haisa laHashem hamalucha, then to Hashem will be the revealed kingdom in the world. V'haya Hashem l'melech al kol haaretz, and God will be the king over the entire universe. And on that day, Hashem will be one, and His name will be one. This is the messianic revelation, the way that it's brought forth in the book of Ovadia. Who was Ovadia? Ovadia was a convert to Judaism. Who did he convert from? From which nation? Esav. He was an Edomite, and he converted to Judaism. He took the name Ovadia, the servant of Hashem, and he is the one that to which Hashem gave this prophecy about the ultimate transformation of Esav. So Yitzchok was hoping, let's do it now. Let's avoid the rush. Let's avoid 3,500 years of pain and gullus and ups and downs and roller coaster rides of Judaism. Let's do it now. Here's the thing. It was an idea, Yisrael, whose time had not yet come. That was the bottom line. He realized that once he saw that the blessing was given to Yaakov, he agreed with it. He said, Gam baruch yihiyeh, right after he gave the bracha to Esav, came in and said, what happened? Yaakov, he tried tricking me twice. And Yitzchok said, who is this who came in and received the blessing? He also should be blessed. Meaning now that Yitzchok was aware of Yaakov's chicanery, he said he should be blessed. He knowingly gave him the blessing. Why? Because he realized as well now at this point that transforming Esav was an idea whose time had not yet come. Could you imagine how overjoyed Yitzchak was when Esav came and he was like, wow, he's changed. He's a changed person. He must have been so disappointed when he found out it was Yaakov. Not because, of his disdain. He didn't have any disdain for Yaakov, but because he just thought that this was, wow, the total transformation of everything he was hoping would become of Esav, that Esav would be just like Yaakov. It now happened. Except one little problem. It was Yaakov. So the idea of the absolute transformation of the negative to the positive that I was hoping for, it's not going to happen now. So he went with that. Then Yaakov was hoping he could do it with Esav, and all of the encounters of Yaakov and Esav were the same. And ultimately, it's in the book of Ovadia, which is the Haftorah for Toldos or Vayishlach. Different opinions, different customs of which one to read it for. But it will happen, right? So they were on that train, and perhaps they set the trajectory. If they didn't create the transformation, because that idea had not yet come, but at least they set the trajectory for that transformation, right? In this whole story. But now, Kabbalistically, we have a sense what Yitzchok was so excited about, this great light. Now let's just try to figure out a way to bring it, to internalize it, right? That it should be brought down into the reality of the world and not distorted. You have all different, this is the whole process of Judaism. A whole idea in the process of Judaism is having these great ideas and making sure that they do not become distorted, right? Even the so-called good religions, right? They're major distortions of Judaism. That doesn't mean that they have nothing to do with Judaism. That wouldn't be correct. They have something to do with Judaism, but just majorly distorted. The trick is to bring it in, to bring it down, to internalize it, right? Then you don't have the distortions. But when you just have the great light, when people are exposed to a great light, this is, by the way, also, from this we can kind of sense why the study of Kabbalah was prohibited. It was forbidden for so many years, for many generations, because it's a very high level light and it can easily become distorted. And a person can get this, the Messianic Jews distorted. You know what? I'm not sure when you say Messianic Jews, I can think of right off the top of my head 3 different groups of Jews that you're referring to. 4 different groups of Jews that you're referring to. So I don't know who you're talking about. Jewish people who want Mashiach to come, that's not a distortion. Jewish people who think the Messiah has already come and we're just waiting for the second coming, that's a major distortion. I don't know, Susan, I don't know, sometimes you have a problem with your system here in speaking, but right? So Jewish people are supposed to be hoping for Mashiach. So then all of a sudden, so a whole group of people say Mashiach already came, so that's a problem? Yeah, that's all of a sudden. Yeah, they believe he already came and there's going to be a second coming. And that was such a major distortion that millions of Jews had been killed in his name. Okay? That's how big of a distortion it was. That Judaism, that they endeavored to wipe out Judaism, to erase Judaism, and to murder Jewish people, right? So this is what happens with distortions, right? It's a big problem. right? It's so close to the truth. That's the thing about a distortion. So close to the truth. MS is the truth. If something is so close to the truth, someone tells you what you're saying, it's so close to the truth. It's not a compliment.
There used to be soap commercials, I think. I don't know if they're still around. Dove, I think it was. 99 and 44 hundredths percent pure. That was the big commercial. So Rabbi, his name here, said, anything that is 99, 44, 100% emes is 100% sheker.
Right. It's it's an interesting thing. I mean, now the fact of the matter is that we have mixed metaphors. I mean, if a drop of milk falls into a fleshik pot, it doesn't become treif, right? Because something can become nullified. So it depends where you're talking, what you're talking about, right? But when you're talking about truth, when you say, boy, that's 99% true, yeah, that's another word for saying, right? It's like my wife says to me, she says, you're 99% reliable. That's another, what's the English word for 99% reliable? Unreliable.
Means you're almost perfect.
Almost perfect. There you go. That's my wife, right? What does that mean? If you're almost perfect, you're imperfect. And
Perfect, that's right.
this is not meant to judge each other, okay? This is not meant
Chas v'sholom.
right. I'm just saying it's it's an issue of how we take the truth from Hashem, and the Torah gives us a way of how to absorb it and how to internalize it and how to live it. That's what Yiddishkeit is. That's all of what Judaism is. Otherwise,
And that's what is so dangerous about what's going on now, because society is trying to become totally relativistic. I mean, this is going back to whatchamacallit, paganism, just without the gods. They want to eliminate gods, fine. So now it's a Hefgewelt. My truth is this, and my truth counts.
moral relativism, as they call it.
Right.
Now back to jumping back down into the Maimon. Now we're going to use a little bit more of the Kabbalistic terminologies to describe everything that we've been talking about until this point. Now it is known that the reason the life force from Hashem becomes trapped in the 10 crowns of impurity is because unholiness has already swallowed up a wealth of sparks of light from Tohu, and through our divine service, it will spit them back. Okay, this is taking a verse from Eov, and it's applied in the Kabbalistic sense that the negative swallows up a wealth. How does, and the Rebbe is going to go through this. We'll go a little bit further. And as it says, there is a time when someone unholy rules over someone holy, but it is for his own detriment. Since through the holiness trapped in it, we will ultimately transform the evil itself into holiness. This wealth, so we said that the wealth is swallowed up by the negative. So negativity has an unbelievable mother lode of holiness. That's the point here. This wealth is from the sparks of holiness that fell into them at the beginning of creation of the world, when the vessels, the kalim of Tohu, shattered. And as it says, each king ruled and died, referring to how the kalim of Tohu shattered. Additionally, a wealth of sparks of holiness fell into unholiness from the sins of the tree of knowledge, as is written in Sefer HaGilgulim from the Arizal. Let me explain this a little bit, right? So the point is that, as we've discussed before, we'll discuss again, in the bringing about of creation, you have Hashem, who is above and beyond anything, right? Coming down into a, shall we say, into a system. Whenever anything Kabbalistic, any of the Sfirot that we're talking about, it's a system. So how can you have something that's beyond dimension coming into a system? Well, the way the Arizal describes it is that it wasn't so smooth. Well, by design, of course. It wasn't so smooth. The first thing that happened was it came into a world that's called Tohu. What does Tohu mean? Tohu means chaos, which is the total opposite of a system. What's the opposite of something that's systemized? Chaos. And we can comprehend how bringing God, who is beyond any dimension whatsoever, into a system goes through this level of tohu, chaos. So in sense of let's just use as an analogy to understand this idea of the chaos, for instance, could be expressed in the human being for some people who are extremely creative. You have people who are great artists or deep thinkers, that they think out of the box and they have just such amazing creativity. Oftentimes these people could also end up killing themselves, right? There's also much greater instances of suicide, right? Think Van Gogh, right? You think of, that's a great example of, wow, look at this unbelievable beauty being brought into the world, right? Because there's a certain chaos. And chaos is, again, speaking to the problem of bringing the light into a state of it being absorbed. Sometimes somebody can love someone so much that the relationship is horrific because it's without respecting the boundaries of the other. But I love you so much, I always want you with me.
That's always, but that's getting back again to what you want. That's where it gets misplaced.
Right.
You love them so much, then you want something.
Right. But this is all coming from the sense of tohu. This is rooted in the tohu. So the point, the basic Kabbalistic point is that there's this great mother lode of holiness in this level of chaos, of tohu, that becomes shattered because the light could not be absorbed into the vessels, and so the vessels shattered. And those shattered vessels create sparks, and those sparks filter down into the world. And we are meant to take those sparks and elevate them back to their source. That's the whole system that the Arizal describes of the breaking of the vessels. The idea of the breaking of the vessels is really about our work of transforming the world back into the kingdom of Hashem, the Malchus Hashem. But that's a whole process, right? But why all of the bother? Because specifically the negativity has contained within it the greatest holiness. That's why teshuvah brings a person to a level beyond the tzaddik. That's why, in order to bring about Mashiach, you had to have Rus. You had to have Rus
Ammon and Moab.
She was a Moabite, right? And you had and the Moabites came about in this week's Torah portion through this unbelievable incestuous relationship between Lot and his daughters.
And then Tamar and Yehuda.
And Tamar and Yehuda, right? So you had a heck of a way to bring about Mashiach through all of these twisted and contorted relationships. Why? Because you're bringing down the highest light. And there's a mashal brought for this. And just to because it gives us a good sense. I think this mashal is very useful because we can all kind of maybe have a certain sense of it, but it's like there's a story is told of Herschel, the diamond dealer. Herschel, the diamond dealer, was traveling, and he went to the inn that he always stayed at, and the innkeeper said, Herschel, I'm so sorry, but all of the rooms are taken. And he says, you don't have even one bed? The innkeeper said, I have one bed, but it's in the room of Yankel the Ganav, Yankel the thief. I can't take the liability of putting you with your diamonds in the room of Yankel the thief. Herschel said, it's okay, don't worry about it. I can take care of myself. I relieve you of any responsibility. So he says, okay, fine. So he goes, prepares himself, puts away his diamonds and everything. Yankel wakes up, as we learn in Hayom Yom. You can learn a lot from a Ganef. They wake up early in the morning and they go to work, and they're very diligent in their work. And so he wakes up and he sees, lying next to him, he sees Herschel the diamond dealer. He thinks, jackpot, right? Boy, this is my lucky morning. So he starts going to work and taking his coat and feeling through all of the lining and everything and in and out and expertly going under the pillow and lifting Herschel's head without waking him at all. And silently, he's such a gifted Ganef. He's just such amazing, magical fingers. He's able to go underneath the pillow and underneath Yankel and underneath the mattress and everywhere. He spends hours and hours meticulously checking everything. He cannot find the diamonds. Comes the morning. Herschel, after a good night's sleep, wakes up, says, Moda'ani, thank you Hashem for giving me back my neshama. Washes Negelwasser. He says, Yankel, so nice to see you. He walks over to Yankel's side of the room and goes into Yankel, the Ganef's satchel, opens it up and pulls out his diamonds. Where did he hide his diamonds? In Yaakov's bag. Where does Hashem hide sometimes the greatest level of holiness? In the negativity. And that way it can sneak in. That way it's protected. That way it can come in without abuse, without distortion, because it's already in the bag of the Ganef, right? And it's a little bit of a mind-blowing idea. But what the Arizal explains is that we have the capacity to take this negativity and transform it into holiness. That's our job here in this world. This is what Yitzchok had hoped to do. We said it was an idea whose time had not yet come. But this,
I lost you there. I heard the word satchel and then you blanked out and you just came back.
That Herschel put his jewels in Yaakov's satchel, in the Ganef's bag. Where was the one place the Ganef didn't check?
His bag.
He didn't check his own bag. That would be a crazy place to put the diamonds, right? So he checked everything, right? But it basically was able to bypass all of the problems. It's a very deep mashal. It's a very deep parable. But we see, practically speaking, and as the Alter Rebbe is going to speak to it soon, he's going to talk about how transforming this negative, we've come into exile to add on Gerim, converts to Judaism, like, who was the convert we mentioned earlier? Obadiah, a book of Tanakh. It's called Obadiah. You know where Obadiah is? It's in the Treyasar. Treyasar are the 12 smaller prophecies. There were smaller books. They put the 12 all together. The most famous one is Jonah, the book of Jonah. We all read on Yom Kippur, so everyone's aware of that. The book of Obadiah we read on the Parsha of Vayishlach. Again, with this whole story with Yaakov and Esav.
Obadiah is all of one. Eric,
One chapter.
Mm.
What a chapter. So Ovadia and Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Akiva, these are all and Shmaya and Avtalion. These are all either converts or children of people who've converted to Judaism. So we go into Gullus to gather these sparks. Very holy job that we do. So when we take food, there are sparks inside of that food. And so the food has to be kosher. And we say a blessing on it. Then we take the energy from the food. We take the energy from the food and we serve Hashem with it. And thus everything becomes elevated back to its source. That's the whole system. So we'll continue with this, God willing, next week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you all for joining. You're very welcome.
It's great to be back.
Ah,
To answer the question,
ah,
to answer the question you didn't hear my response was I'm working on Simon 91.
Simon.
91.
Oh, Simon 91. Okay, so you're still in the program.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Be well. Have a wonderful week. Take care. See you next week, God willing.